get caught.
All around us, in every part of the UK, are skilled teams of eagle-eyed men and women, working alongside the police to keep us safe. They're the people on the front line, tackling the hazards that place us in danger.
This is not something we want anyone at all to ever experience.
They're cracking down on those who threaten our families.
These people prey on vulnerable people. They're just the lowest of the low.
They're protecting us on the streets and in our homes.
With telephone calls now, I don't answer it. That's how scared I am.
These men and women make up the UK's enforcement teams, our defenders. Today, our defenders crack down on a company claiming it can make our homes more energy efficient.
I was thinking, Ed, start videoing things here because these are clowns.
They disrupt the illegal supply of unlicensed and potentially dangerous medicines.
You don't know what's in there, how it's been stored, how it's been transported, who's manufactured it, in what conditions. There could be anything, literally anything in that product.
And they investigate fraudsters caught rigging carbon emission tests.
How can they sleep when they're hurting people like that? People can't breathe. People are dying.
Back in 2018, we covered the tragic case of Ella Roberta Kissy Deborah. Ella was 9 years old when she suffered a severe asthma attack and died.
She just celebrated her 9th birthday when she passed away. The impact of her death was absolutely horrendous. Nobody thought she was going to die. When you lose your child, it's like your child is about the future, and suddenly your future is taken away from you, just like that.
An inquest recorded the cause of death as acute respiratory failure. But Ella's mother, Rosamond, wasn't satisfied. She wanted to know exactly what had caused her daughter's asthma attack.
We knew she died from asthma, there was no doubt about that, but all her triggers and everything, it was still a mystery. I was puzzled, there was something missing. I couldn't pin the whole thing together, because that's what you do as a parent. You get really inquisitive, don't you?
Ella's family lived close to London's traffic-congested South Circular. When evidence emerged that there'd been a spike in pollution levels, Rosamond was convinced they'd found the cause of her daughter's death.
I kind of knew, but seeing it in writing is a whole different ballgame. Suspecting something and knowing something are completely two different things.
Rosamond wanted a second inquest.
I believe it's important for us to get another inquest, for us to examine the medical evidence in front of us, so we can all know for sure this is all about justice for her. We want to know why she died.
Finally, Rosamond's tireless efforts paid off. A second inquest was granted.
I loved her so much, so much, and I'm so proud of her that she is doing this for everybody else, even you and me, because we all breathe air.
In December 2020, the coroner reached a landmark decision. Air pollution had contributed to Ella's death.
We've got the justice for her, which she so deserved, but also it's about other children still as we walk around our city of high levels of air pollution.
For Rosamond, the fight for clean air goes on.
There's always tears, and there will always be tears. I just don't want any other family to go through what we've been through.
Since Ella's death, low emission zones have been introduced in London and other major cities. In those areas, some older, high-polluting vehicles have to pay up to £300 a day, or have a special device fitted to reduce harmful emissions. But one dishonest trader in Essex fitted fake devices to hundreds of vehicles in a fraud worth over £500,000.
How can they sleep when they're hurting people like that? People can't breathe. People are dying. Right. So this is our camper van. It's brilliant. Very well designed. Here's the cooking facility. Gas. It's got a gas or electric fridge.
Melanie Rothbarker and her husband Nigel bought their camper van in 2013. It's their pride and joy.
Our camper van is a Heimer, and it's a left-hand drive, and it's 1992 registration. The camper van is such a great thing because it gives us the sense of freedom, because we can just jump in it and go if we want to get just change of scenery without it costing too much money, and we can just be gone. And it's just like being on the road. You just feel the stress fall away as we just drive up the road. We have got the opportunity to let the bed down. Whoops. And that's a double bed. The curtains pull closed, and that's where I sleep usually, and the dogs do as well. I really enjoy it. It's been great fun. We've had it for now 7, 8 years, and it's been an absolute boon to have.
Melanie's home in Chiswick falls within London's low emission zone, so her 30-year-old camper van needed to reduce emissions in order to comply.
We don't want to hurt people. We had to check out what was required. So I did some research and looked at prices.
Special devices can be fitted to the exhaust to eliminate up to 90% of pollutants. Melanie searched for a company that could fit one of these low-emission devices. She found Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited in Essex, not to be confused with any company with a similar name.
They had a big showroom, it looked really nice. The system itself was a German import, I think, and it was a really good system, compliant. Nothing seemed to shout out to me wrong.
Melanie was quoted £2,400 to have the device fitted, just over half the price quoted by other companies she'd looked at.
They were the most cost-effective of the companies that I found on the internet, and were also available and ready, could do it quite quickly. So I took the van over there, got them to fit it, and everything was hunky-dory. Or so I thought.
Over the next 12 months, Melanie and Nigel used their camper van as normal. All seemed well, until Melanie took it in for an annual checkup.
There was a company in Perryvale, near where we live, so I went there and they put it on the ramp and it failed, the exhaust. I couldn't believe it, and the guy said, well, maybe it was because it hadn't been run or whatever, so let it warm up. He tested it again and it failed again.
Something was seriously wrong. The camper van was pumping excess levels of toxic fumes and had failed 2 emission tests. A Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency inspector looked at the device on Melanie's van.
He looked underneath the van and he said there was no serial number and he'd never seen anything like it, and I showed him the details as to where I'd got it and everything.
Melanie called Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited, the company that had originally fitted the device.
They said, oh, don't worry, just bring it round, the serial number must have fallen off, bring it round and we'll sort it all out.
Melanie took the van back to Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited. They checked it and told her the device was working.
I said that this was very odd, but anyway, they said they'd send off all the details, which they did. But I still, at that point, didn't realise that there was something terribly wrong with Vortex.
The truth was, Melanie's camper van hadn't passed its emissions test. Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited was falsifying test results to cover up the fact that it was selling dodgy devices. Later, their days of getting away with it are numbered.
They were just fitting what was essentially a lump of metal. It had nothing inside. It wasn't reducing the emissions at all.
Ed Hall and his wife Diane know a thing or two about energy efficiency. For 46 years, Ed worked as a heating engineer.
I used to be a gas service engineer, servicing boilers, working for various companies around the Midlands area. I can calculate how much heat is in the rooms. I can calculate the heat loss through the walls, windows.
They've had solar panels fitted to the roof and smart meters to keep track of their energy bills.
I keep up to date on all the new technologies. I'm very much into that because I want to know what's good and what's bad.
But, like scores of other families, Ed and Diane were taken in by a cowboy company, promising to cut their energy bills. Back in 2016, Diane was seriously ill and needed hospital treatment. She recovered, but her immune system was damaged.
She was very, very ill and she nearly died. They did say, keep her warm, keep the house warm, watch that she doesn't catch a cold because her immunity was right down low.
When Ed and Diane spotted an advert for a company called Eco Shield UK Limited, they were immediately interested. The company claimed it could insulate your home and cut your energy bills.
It was on about saving heat, and we got a little bit of damp on one window around the back, and obviously with this spray that they could put on, it would stop the water from penetrating the walls.
Ed and Diane contacted the company to find out more.
They came out, bought all their glossy magazines, telling us how good it looks. They gave us the sales pitch of whatever we decide, they would do.
Ed and Diane eventually signed up to have the roof and walls sealed against the elements. The total cost? £3,500.
They were going to spray the walls and make them waterproof. This would seal the whole house from any rain coming in.
They were also treating the roof with a special insulating paint.
At that time, my wife was still very poorly and I would have spent endless amounts of money to keep her warm.
But when workmen arrived, Ed was immediately concerned. They didn't have even the most basic equipment.
They hadn't got a hard broom. I had to lend them one of them. They hadn't got buckets or bowls to catch all the rubbish. They hadn't got anything.
As work got underway, Ed became even more worried. Drastic action was needed.
Ed, start videoing things here because these are clowns.
Ed decided to use his video camera to capture events.
And I did ask them, where's your scaffold? Health and safety, because you're on a roof, you are supposed to have safety harnesses. They hadn't got a clue, basically. And this was when the warning bells started to ring.
Ed was also worried about the quality of the work. He thought he was getting 2 coats of insulating paint, but it looked like he was only getting 1.
It even says it on the tin. It's there right in front of you. When I tried to explain the 2 coats, to him, his answer was lefty, righty, uppy, downy, and he did the actions, and that is 2 coats. And I could not believe that.
Ed had already paid 2 of the £3,500, so he let work continue. Once they'd finished, he wrote a cheque for the balance and went onto the roof to inspect their work.
I literally got back, went up on the roof, checked, phoned up my bank, stopped that cheque, stop it dead, do not pay it.
The roof was damaged, and there were scores of broken tiles.
I saw the disaster up there, and I thought, oh my God. They left the roof in such a state, holes in the roof.
To make matters worse, the paint was the wrong colour.
Originally, we wanted it green, because that's the original colour of the tiles, green. When they turned up on site, all they got was grey.
The cost of repairing the damage was an estimated £12,000.
The roof is ruined, it's scrap.
This wasn't a one-off. EcoShield UK Limited was deliberately conning people, carrying out overpriced and ineffective work and refusing to give refunds. This was fraudulent trading. Ron Ruddock is the Trading Standards Manager at Leicester City Council. Ron has worked in consumer protection enforcement for 2 decades.
I can go back when I did my degree 20-odd years ago, and trading standards offences were regarded as quasi-crime, similar to crime, not real crime. What I'll tell you is that we're talking about people here who are committing fraud offences. It is real crime.
EcoShield UK Limited's pledge to make homes more energy efficient was a money-making scam. Scores of people across the West Midlands made formal complaints.
Worcestershire Trading Standards had received a number of complaints, so had Coventry and Dudley. And as a result of that, those were pulled together and given to the regional investigation team to start looking at.
Tony Quigley is the head of Birmingham Trading Standards and led the investigation. Later, our defenders uncover the truth about EcoShield UK Limited.
You have certain individuals that seem to get a buzz out of taking money off vulnerable individuals. This was one of those particular companies headed up by individuals that seem to enjoy it as well.
Low emission zones have reduced toxic air pollution in central London by 1/3. In these areas, heavily polluting vehicles are fitted with a special device to lower emissions. These devices should be fitted by a garage approved by the Energy Saving Trust, an organisation tackling climate change.
This is a heater section here. This bit here is basically a mixing chamber.
This is what's known as a NOx sensor. There's one here and there's one further back. The Energy Saving Trust have made it quite a lengthy process to make sure that people who are fitting these devices know what they're doing and they are fitting the proper devices.
Mark Bowden works at Cybrand in Chester and is accredited by the Energy Saving Trust.
Cybrand are responsible for emissions control devices. We fit them to leisure vehicles, taxis, Land Rover Defenders, vans, transporters, things like that, basically to bring them up to the latest emissions standard.
To fit a device like this typically costs over £5,000.
Sensors all on here. All of the parts that we use are stamped with serial numbers, and the serial numbers are taken from each part and then passed on to the Energy Saving Trust as part of the accreditation process.
If the device is faulty or fitted incorrectly, not only is it bad for the environment, it could also be dangerous for drivers.
We are dealing with engines which run at very high temperatures. The risk of fire, if incorrect kit is installed, is very high. And they also weigh quite a lot as well, so if they're not installed properly and they come off the vehicle when the vehicle's travelling at speed, there could be serious injuries.
Melanie Roth-Barker got a device fitted to her camper van by Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited in Essex. The price was £2,400. It seemed too good to be true, and it was.
The system itself looked really good, compliant and much more cost-effective than other places, so why wouldn't I go there?
But the device was fake. In fact, Melanie was one of hundreds of customers tricked by the company into buying a device that didn't do the job.
They paid thousands of pounds for a device which they believed compliant and had basically been ripped off and had a device that wasn't compliant at all.
Claire Shields is an investigator for the National Investigation Service, a special unit tackling serious crime affecting the public sector. Claire is our defender.
Customers believed that Vortex were fitting compliant devices to their vehicles to reduce emissions, but in fact they were just fitting what was essentially a lump of metal. It had nothing inside, it wasn't reducing the emissions at all.
This was a large-scale and deliberate fraud, with potentially serious consequences for air pollution levels in London.
It became clear that they were falsifying serial numbers and falsifying devices.
Claire's team, working alongside the police, carried out searches at the company's premises in Essex. A number of fake devices were seized, along with paperwork, laptops and mobile phones.
This is one of the false devices that had been fitted to one of the customers' vehicles. You can see it's got pretty poor welding there. There's also poor welding at the top here. The devices should have an identification plate on it saying the name of the supplier and identification serial number on it.
More than 300 fake and completely worthless devices had been fitted to high-polluting vehicles.
Some customers had issues with their vehicles where it did cause damage. Others had other issues such as loss of power. The device could have fallen off when they're driving down the motorway, so essentially it was very dangerous.
Our defenders needed to contact customers who'd unwittingly bought fake devices.
A lot of people didn't know that they'd had a false device fitted. A lot of customers had been driving in and out of the London low emission zone thinking that their device was compliant and their emissions were reduced.
Using Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency records, Claire's team tracked down customers at risk. Melanie Roth-Barker was among them.
When I found out that Vortex had been conning us and it was an absolute scam, not only was I really furious about being scammed, they were wrecking the environment and hurting people's lives.
Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited had got away with it for so long by insisting vehicles were returned to them for annual checks. It was only when customers like Melanie took their vehicles to a different garage that the scam was discovered.
By my taking the van to a proper place to get it tested, it opened a whole can of worms for Vortex, so that makes me feel really pleased that I actually had a hand in helping bringing these people down.
Melanie was one of 94 witnesses who provided statements.
By bringing this to the fore, I think I probably helped a number of other people, or at least stopped other people being conned in the way that I had been, which makes me feel better for that.
Vortex Exhaust Technology Limited had made more than £500,000 selling these worthless devices. Company director Barry Mead, salesman Gary Ponder, and 2 other employees were interviewed under caution.
Barry Mead was the director of the company. He was the one that had main control over the company account where the money was paid into for the false devices.
Mead denied all knowledge of the fraud.
He blamed the other defendants and stated they were responsible and knew nothing about it.
The 4 men denied conspiracy to commit fraud and fraudulent trading.
So we then ended up with a 6-week trial, and at the trial basically they just blamed each other for the fraud.
In November 2019, Barry Mead and Gary Ponder were found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud and were each jailed for 3 years. 2 other employees were given suspended sentences.
This was a really good case to get a good result on, and it just shows the good work that we do as a unit. Not only did we convict all 4 defendants, we stopped them from committing further fraud and continuing to damage the environment.
I don't know how people can look you in the eye and take your money and do this. It's just absolutely outrageous. How can they sleep when they're hurting people like that? People can't breathe, people are dying.
Melanie's grateful for the work of our defenders in bringing these fraudsters to justice.
It's great to know that there are people that are looking after us and looking out for us to protect us from these awful people.
Meanwhile, the fight for clean air continues.
She would be very proud that her name is being used to do something really positive, because I've always said to you, she was incredibly kind, so this is the sort of thing she would approve of.
Kate Smith is an investigator with the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency Enforcement Team.
Hi everyone. The purpose of today is to go through some packages that may contain illicit medicines. Make a note of what they are.
Today, Kate's running an operation to prevent unlicensed and potentially harmful drugs being shipped into the UK and sold online.
Let's get on and do it.
Kate is our defender.
What we find is that over half of all medical devices and medicines that are purchased online are either counterfeit or unauthorised, so that's a lot of medicines and devices.
Kate is working alongside Border Force officers, intercepting suspect packages at a distribution centre in London. It's part of Operation Pangaea.
Operation Pangaea is a global operation with 110 countries taking part, which is to basically try and disrupt the importation, sale and supply of illicit medicines.
Packages containing counterfeit or unlicensed medicines will be seized and taken out of circulation.
We will open them up, see what's inside them. If there's illicit medicine inside them, we'll count them, make a note of what they are, take a note of where they've come from, who they're going to, which we'll then collate, make a note of. And this box contains Semforce, which is an unauthorised medicine in the UK, so it is illegal to sell, supply.
Packages suspected of containing illegal medicines are first X-rayed by Border Force.
Our role here on DEX would be to target the country that we're looking at, so in this occasion it's Singapore, and we'll choose the items that MHRA would be interested in and then hand it over to them.
Rupinder Gruel is a Border Force officer.
We could be looking for a lot of blister packs and a lot of tablets. A lot of these packets do contain large volumes. You may be looking at about 1,000, 2,000 plus tablets in each packet.
Some of the packages Rupinder's seized have even been gift-wrapped.
It can look like a normal gift, but sometimes people send it like that to try and put customs officers off, but we're always targeted, and it's a different way of profiling for us.
Initial suspicions about the contents of these packages are confirmed.
As you can see, there's quite a few blister packs on there, and they're containing tablets in. However, this one over here is containing vials, and that could contain a few powders in there that MHRA would be interested in.
Rupinder X-rays more boxes and finds even more tablets.
As you can see, the one on the left got 4 small bags in there, and each bag is containing tablets. If I had to estimate, I would say about 3,000 or 2,000 tablets in there.
With the X-ray identifying potentially illegal medicines, Rupinder takes the boxes to Kate for inspection. This box has been imported from India.
These are modafinil tablets, which are cognitive enhancers, predominantly taken by students because they're advertised as improving your memory, making you concentrate for longer periods of time, so quite popular at the moment.
Modafinil should only be taken with a doctor's prescription. Buying it online without a prescription can be highly dangerous.
In order to protect public health, we have to take them off the market, and this is why we do this operation.
Unauthorised lifestyle drugs like these are frequently seized at the border.
In this particular operation, the most common products that we've found coming in have been erectile dysfunction products, slimming drugs, sleeping tablets, products for hair loss and the like.
These drugs, when purchased without medical supervision, could pose a risk to public health.
You don't know what's in there, you know, how it's been stored, how it's been transported, who's manufactured it, in what conditions, so that there could be anything, literally anything in that product.
Kate counts the tablets and puts them in an evidence bag.
There are 2,000 tablets there, destined for one individual.
These tablets, along with other drugs seized today, will eventually be destroyed. The exporter's details will be shared with enforcement agencies around the world.
It goes onto a database which is then disseminated for intelligence purposes. They can then take the necessary action by either investigating people, shutting down websites, and ultimately trying to disrupt the supply of these products.
In the latest operation, UK officers have seized 3 million suspect products, and 113,000 illegal websites have been blocked or removed. For Kate, it's all about protecting public health.
It's rewarding when you do stop this supply and you can stop these people from selling these products and potentially get the message out there to people to just not buy medicines off illegal websites because you just don't know what you're taking. It could potentially harm you.
We've seen how Ed and Diane Hall hired EcoShield UK Limited to make their home more energy efficient. But it was an expensive mistake.
I'm thinking, Ed, start videoing things here because these are clowns.
Ed and Diane had been conned, but they weren't alone. In total, there were 51 complaints about EcoShield UK Limited, run by Adrian and Rebecca Hillman.
You have certain individuals that seem to get a buzz out of taking money off vulnerable individuals, and this was one of those particular companies.
Tony Quigley headed this regional investigation for Birmingham Trading Standards.
This wasn't about giving people a really good service. This was about taking money off people.
Tony is our defender.
It beggars belief that somebody could set a company up with those sort of intentions in mind.
Adrian and Rebecca Hillman claimed they could insulate homes and cut energy bills. But the truth was, the service they offered was overpriced and ineffective.
I think one of the things that really stood out about this was the fact that the people that were being targeted generally were elderly people, and in some instances were very vulnerable people. I can think of one, for example, where it was very clear the individual was in sort of late stages of dementia. It's dreadful what this particular company were doing.
Realising they were being investigated, Adrian Hillman shut down EcoShield UK Limited. But he didn't stop trading.
Once the heat was on him, he closed down the company and set up another company with a very similar name.
His new company, Energini Shield UK Limited, continued to rip off customers.
It was the same modus operandi. They were continuing the scam and continuing the lies and continuing with the behaviour.
Retired couple Liz and John Tucker were among those called by the new company.
I think it's absolutely disgusting. They were prepared to take money from so many people, and it's not as if we're rich. We just have green issues on our mind. They're taking advantage of well-meaning people.
I've had a career in nature conservation, so I'm aware of all the green issues, and we were keen to do our bit.
Liz and John's home in Shropshire was already powered by solar panels. Now they wanted a battery to store the energy they generated.
The idea was to, with batteries, store the electricity we generate during the day so that at night we can draw from the batteries rather than using power from the national grid.
Liz and John received a cold call from Hillman's company. They were selling solar panel batteries, just like the ones they were looking for.
The battery was going to be £4,000, and all we had to do was put down a deposit of £700.
The salesman promised a 14-day cooling-off period. If they changed their mind, they'd get a full refund, no questions asked.
We had no reason to be suspicious, absolutely none.
Liz and John did their research and quickly decided the battery wasn't worth the money.
Fairly quickly, we thought, no, we don't want to go with this, and we'll cancel what we'd been planning, which was the start of our problems.
They requested a refund, but it never arrived. Every time they tried to contact the company, they got no response. Eventually, Liz and John decided to take matters into their own hands.
We just wanted to ask a straight question, give us our money back, basically.
They looked up the company online and drove to its registered address in Stourport-on-Severn. They were greeted by a woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Hillman.
First questions were, we're looking for Anna Genie, and Mrs. Hillman said that she heard of the company and thought they were in Worcester, but it was certainly nothing to do with her.
In fact, Energenie Shield UK Limited was her husband's company.
It was a very polite conversation, but swearing blind that she knew nothing about the company.
Liz and John recorded the conversation.
Hello? Hello, yes. Is this Energenie?
I'm not Energenie now.
3 times in the recording, she says, well, it's not me, I don't know anything about it. Number 5 is the registered address.
Well, that's here, but that's not me.
The plot thickens.
Have you heard of them? I've heard of them. I think they do solar.
What could we do? We gathered the evidence. We had the lady who was deeply involved denying any knowledge of it. So we knew we had something like in the can on the tape.
This audio recording, plus the photos and videos provided by Ed Hall, was key evidence for our defenders.
Quite clearly, from the amount of information we're getting, the pattern is already developing. Now we're at the stage where we think something is not right here, and we're putting the pieces of the jigsaw together.
Investigators took witness statements and executed a search warrant at the Hillman's home address.
We found correspondence of complaints, we found further victims that had been subject to this scam.
Paperwork, laptops and mobile phones were seized, and text messages between the couple were retrieved.
When a sale was made, Rebecca would text her husband, there's my next holiday, and things like that. They were gloating about the fact that they were continuing this scam and taking money off people.
Messages sent by their sales manager were also recovered.
He sent a text to Hillman saying, another cheeky £1,200. You know, a cheeky £1,200, you know, as if it was nothing. But actually, to the victims, probably their savings, and they'd come along and just ripped them off, and they thought it was funny.
In total, their victims had paid around £97,000.
This was rich pickings for them. This was about them funding a lifestyle. absolutely no concept at all of the misery they've just caused.
The whole experience took its toll on victims, both financially and emotionally.
Emotionally, it's not affecting me so much, it's affecting my wife more than... That's what angers me. It's affected her. And that angers me. Sorry. They just don't know how it affects people.
Tony was determined to get justice. Adrian and Rebecca Hillman and their sales manager were each interviewed. All three denied any wrongdoing.
There is a common feeling amongst people that trading standards can shut business down. They can't. They rely on victims coming forward, giving statements and being prepared to give evidence in court. The more victims we get, the more compelling our cases are, and the more that the judge can see that this isn't one-off behaviour and reflect that in the sentencing.
As the stories from each of the victims were told, you see a pattern developing where it's quite clear that the individuals involved were taking money off people falsely and didn't care. That's absolutely key to this, is that all of these victims were brave enough to come along and give evidence.
Following an 8-week trial at Birmingham Crown Court, the 3 defendants were found guilty of a total of 34 offences. The sales manager got a suspended sentence, and Rebecca Hillman was jailed for 2.5 years. The judge described Adrian Hillman as a thoroughly dishonest businessman. He was jailed for 5 years.
This sends a really strong message to the perpetrators of these crimes that if you are involved in it, it will be thoroughly investigated. It was a significant custodial sentence. So the courts are taking it seriously, we're taking it seriously.
The successful outcome in this case was down to the hard work and determination of our defenders.
They were superb. They helped us, they held our hands, if you like, through the entire process of preparing the case and our evidence. Mr. Hillman is languishing at Her Majesty's pleasure, and may he stay there as long as possible.
Across the UK, our defenders are out there, fighting back against those determined to exploit us and rip us off, whatever the cost.
We're protecting the public from unscrupulous business people. We're helping the public work out who the rogue traders are and who the genuine traders are. And we're protecting real businesses, genuine, hard-working, honest businesses, from those rogues that pretend to actually be in business, but they're just out to con you out of your money.
Stick around for sport. The Super League show coming up at 1 o'clock. It's a Cornish treat next on BBC Two with Rick Stein.